Pedri has turned a routine squad announcement into a moment that demands attention. His recall to Spain for the coming qualifiers feels less like personal triumph and more like the opening line of a much bigger story. He talks about team first, about how last season Barcelona pulled together and made collective effort their backbone, but under the surface his tone carries the weight of someone seeing the fault lines, a young leader watching not just plays unfold, but the institutions that govern the game wobble under pressure. That's why his comments about the chaotic Vallecas match land so heavily. The game was interrupted by VAR technical problems, players and staff unsure at times if the technology was guiding decisions or simply flickering on and off, and Pedri's blunt admission that he didn't even know when VAR was or wasn't active is the kind of line that forces a conversation about fairness, credibility, and whether modern football's safety net is reliable enough to decide careers and results. The ripple effects don't stop with technology, they reach into selection rooms and the delicate politics of national squads. Spain's manager has named a group that leans heavily on Barcelona talent, but equally notable are the absences. And none more striking than the omission of Joan García, a goalkeeper many at club level have hailed for his composure and shot-stopping. That exclusion turns a single interview into a referendum on selection philosophy. Are managers favouring experience over form, reputation over recent domestic performances, or is there a longer tactical plan we haven't been told about? The debate matters because goalkeepers are pivot points. One confident call, one penalty saved or conceded can shift a tournament's narrative, and the fact that a promising name from Barcelona was left out amplifies the sense that the national setup is weighing its options in a tense, very public way. Pedri himself sits between these narratives in an almost symbolic way. A player who has matured quickly, who insists he's not a veteran and still has much to learn, yet whose voice now shapes headlines. His perspective is forged by history and hard knocks. He speaks of idols like Cruyff and Iniesta, but also remembers being turned away from a Real Madrid trial, an anecdote that places humility next to hunger and gives his words an autobiographical edge. That backstory is more than trivia. It explains why his take on team unity and institutional responsibility carries weight. When someone who has felt rejection and who has rebuilt himself inside Barcelona's collective culture warns that selection, technology, and a rising generation could create seismic consequences, watchers sit up. The wider context is stark. Spain begins crucial qualifiers with momentum, but also with questions. If VAR reliability becomes a headline issue, governing bodies will face pressure to audit technology, amend protocols and clarify procedures, changes that would be welcomed by players who want consistency and by fans who crave fairness. Meanwhile, selection debates over players like Joan García risk creating rifts between club and country narratives. Barcelona will insist their performers deserve a fair hearing, while the national team must balance chemistry, past experience, and tactical needs. And then there's the human drama, a teenager bursting onto the scene, a once rejected youngster now recalled, older stars navigating form, all adding layers of unpredictability to what should be a straightforward qualifying run. So what should viewers expect? Expect tension every time VAR becomes part of the story. Expect heated club-country conversations each time a surprise omission is announced, and expect Pedri, measured, thoughtful, and increasingly influential, to be a voice that keeps these debates centered on outcomes, not just personalities. This is no longer a brief interview about a match. It is an inflection point. The qualifiers are weeks away, but the questions raised now about rules, about selection fairness, about how a generation of stars will be managed, could alter Spain's path to the World Cup more than any single transfer or tactical tweak. Watch for how the Federation responds, how managers defend their choices, and whether the VAR failures at Vallecas become the catalyst for change or merely another headline quickly forgotten. Either way, the stakes are clear. Technology, selection, and identity are colliding, and in that collision careers and a nation's hopes could be rewritten.